Touch one trigger hair inside a Venus flytrap, and almost nothing happens. Touch it again soon enough and the trap snaps shut. Keep stimulating it, and the plant begins a different sequence, sealing the trap, producing digestive enzymes, preparing to turn an insect into nutrients. It is tempting to say the plant has counted, but counted with what? There is no brain hidden beneath the soil, no neurons run through the leaf, no small green animal waits inside the trap to make a decision, and yet the plant does not respond to every touch in the same way. It integrates a sequence of electrical events. In one laboratory protocol, 2 closely spaced action potentials closed the trap. 5 were required for significant activation of tested digestive hydrolase genes. The word counting makes a good headline. The mechanism is more interesting. The flytrap is using thresholds. One signal is not enough. A second changes the state of the system. Continued stimulation releases another physiological program. What looks like a tiny act of judgment can arise from tissue, timing, and chemistry. So perhaps the question is not whether a plant can think like us. Perhaps it is how much a living thing can do without thinking like us at all. Plants live inside a problem animals usually escape. They cannot run from a hungry insect, walk toward water, or retreat into shade. Every threat and opportunity must be handled while rooted in place. That stillness is deceptive. An animal can separate sensing from action with movement. Detect danger here, then carry the whole body somewhere else. A plant usually has to solve the problem locally while keeping the rest of itself alive. One root encounters dry soil while another finds moisture. One leaf enters shadow while its neighbor remains in sun. A wounded edge may remain damaged while distant tissue prepares a defense. There is no single instant when all of this becomes one picture. The plant's answer is assembled across space. Each region changes what it is doing, and those changes alter the conditions faced by the others. Whether that counts as intelligence under every definition is a separate argument. The practical problem is simpler. How can many living parts produce a useful response when none of them is in charge? Inside a plant, information moves. Cells alter voltage, chemical messengers accumulate, water pressure shifts, genes change activity, growth bends toward one condition and away from another. The organism has no command center, but it is not without coordination. Consider a small flowering plant called Arabidopsis thaliana. Damage one leaf, and the event does not remain local. Experiments have shown wound-linked electrical activity traveling from leaf to leaf, involving glutamate receptor-like genes, and associated with jasmonate defense responses in distant unwounded tissue. The untouched leaf is not feeling the injured leaf's pain. Current evidence does not establish any subjective pain here. What the experiment shows is both stranger and more precise. Tissue far from the wound can be recruited into defense through distributed electrical and chemical signaling. No neuron carries the warning and no brain receives it. The response belongs to the plant's body as a network. That network also responds to movement too small for us to notice. A caterpillar feeding on a leaf creates a distinctive pattern of vibration. Researchers played those chewing vibrations to Arabidopsis. Later, the plants increased particular chemical defenses compared with plants exposed to wind, insect song, or no vibration. Did the plant hear the caterpillar? Only if hear is being used as loose shorthand. The safer description is mechanosensation. The plant detected and responded to a vibration pattern. The distinction matters. A measured response is not evidence of an inner sound, fear, or anticipation. But removing the metaphor does not make the result smaller. A leaf fixed in place can sort one kind of mechanical disturbance from others well enough for its later chemistry to change. This is where plant behavior unsettles our vocabulary. We built words such as intelligence, memory, and learning around animals with nervous systems. When plants perform some of the same functions by different means, the words begin to stretch. Memory is one example. Plants can be primed. An earlier challenge may leave behind physiological, transcriptional, metabolic, or epigenetic changes that allow a faster or stronger response later. Biologists call this defense priming. It is a retained state with consequences, not recollection. The plant isn't replaying the attack as an experience. Nothing in the evidence requires a remembered scene. The past persists because the organism has been physically altered by it. Human memory can also depend on physical change, of course, but similarity of function does not prove similarity of experience. A scar records a wound without remembering the moment it happened. The sensitive plant Mimosa pudica makes that boundary harder to hold. Touch it and its leaflets fold. Disturb it repeatedly with a harmless stimulus, and under some laboratory and field conditions, the response becomes reduced. Their field study reported stimulus-dependent habituation-like behavior and faster rehabituation after an earlier exposure 15 days before. That sounds remarkably like learning. Then the evidence becomes less tidy. Other experiments have not found habituation in their particular paradigms. The stimulus matters, the controls matter. Fatigue and ordinary sensory adaptation must be separated from learning. The famous claim of month-long memory from the original drop experiment still lacks a strict independent replication using the same paradigm. And habituation is not associative learning. A reduced response to repeated harmless disturbance does not show that a plant has formed a Pavlovian prediction, still less that it remembers as a person does. The honest version is narrower. Some Mimosa experiments support context-dependent habituation-like changes, while the durability, mechanism, and interpretation remain disputed. That sentence is less spectacular than plants remember. It is also where the real science begins. More than a century before electrical reporters and gene expression assays, Charles and Francis Darwin watched roots move. They observed that the tip of a root could respond to gravity, contact, and moisture, while growth in the adjoining region produced the bend. In the closing pages of The Power of Movement in Plants, Darwin compared the root tip, directing nearby movement with the brain of a lower animal. The line still echoes through arguments about plant intelligence, but it was an analogy, not the discovery of a plant brain. Darwin was trying to describe a division of labor, sensitivity concentrated in one region, movement executed in another. Modern research has revealed mechanisms he could not see, but it has not turned the metaphor into anatomy. Why then are we so eager to find a mind in a plant? Perhaps because coordinated behavior feels incomplete unless we can imagine a coordinator. We look for the place where the organism knows. We expect information to arrive at a center, be interpreted and return as a command. Plants keep offering another architecture. The flytrap's thresholds are distributed through excitable tissues and chemical cascades. Wound responses travel through electrical and molecular pathways. Defense priming persists as changed physiological state. Growth emerges from many local processes responding to light, gravity, water, touch, and damage. A hidden green brain would explain all of this in one stroke. Nothing in the evidence points to one. What the evidence points to instead is an organism that doesn't need one. This does not settle the question of plant consciousness. Some scholars argue that the possibility should remain open to empirical investigation, especially under broad definitions of minimal cognition. Others reply that current plant behavior and physiology do not meet the evidential burden for sentience. Signaling, adaptation, and complexity do not by themselves demonstrate subjective experience. At present, the responsible conclusion is not that plants are conscious. It is that consciousness has not been established, yet that a proposal to investigate it is not proof that it exists. That boundary protects the science, but it also protects the mystery. We do not need to imagine a leaf suffering, a root thinking, or a flytrap performing arithmetic to find plants extraordinary. Those images may actually hide the more radical fact. A plant continually gathers information from a world it cannot leave. It changes electrical state, chemistry, growth, and future readiness. It integrates events across time. It coordinates without a command center. What can a plant know without a brain? If know means subjective awareness, the evidence in this story cannot answer. If it means information embodied in a living system, afferences detected, signals integrated, past conditions retained, future responses altered, Pinan plants have been answering all along, not in thoughts we can overhear, in the shape of the next leaf, the chemistry of the unwounded tissue, and the brief electrical silence before a trap closes. So save this story, subscribe for the next one, and until next time, leave a little room for lives organized unlike our own.